So who knew that we're gonna have so many tips and tricks in this episode? Gee, what happens if you get a run in your primer?
Oh, would you look at that?
Look at that. That's a good one. Hey, thanks for watching the channel. Today, we're gonna be putting this roll pan on the back end of a 94 OBS truck that happens to belong to Derek Berry from Vice Grip Garage. Thanks for watching the channel. Thanks for being a part of all of these different tributaries and journeys that we're going on. If you haven't had a chance, go to the back catalog. There's some interesting stuff because we're kind of waffling between what I call the garbage Camaro. It's a 74 Camaro that we're doing the 70 split bumper conversion on. I've got a 280ZX mothballed. We've got this truck, and there's a bunch of other stuff coming down the pike that I wish I could tell you about, but it's top secret stuff. Anyway, today we're going to show a custom roll pan, and we're going to show it on this truck. So it's this piece here, and it's designed to be bolted in, and it fits. If it wasn't for the jack stands, fits pretty nice right about there. We can put some sheet metal screws in there and hold it in place and clamp it from the bottom, but that's where it goes. But I want more of a custom look for this, and so does Derek. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna weld it in. But to weld it in, there's a bit of a gap there, and there's a rolled corner. So I could take the magic glue gun and just hammer a bunch of metal in there once it's flush and do that. But to me, that's the wrong way to do it. We wanna have a nice look, but also not create a corrosion environment for the backside of it. We want this to live past us. So I'm going to show you how to do that. The first step in all of this stuff is to get this silly thing off the ground. We're going to put it up on this rolling stand right here, and to do that we need hydraulics. So here we go. All right, got a little bit of elevated status. Now you can see that this thing actually fits like it's supposed to. And what it's supposed to do. The seams are supposed to meet up here. And you know, that's not a bad look. It's fine. There's seams like that all over the vehicle. But come a little closer. This is designed for this roll to meet up with this roll. So that's probably more like that. Yeah, that's about right. But down here, not exactly the same. Look at that little edge right there. That's because this bed has probably been sat down on the lower bed sides itself and compressed up, or maybe, who knows? Who knows? It's a 94. That's a few decades. So for me to bolt this in, I'm gonna have to body work that out. So, you know, let's weld it in, and then we can body work it as a thing, and then it just looks nice. Nothing wrong with a bolt-in roll pan. They look great, but I gotta work this out anyways. And I want that custom look of a flush, no seam, surround dealio. So how are we gonna accomplish that?
90% of the time, I have no idea what the f I'm talking about.
Here's the spoiler alert. I'm not gonna cheeseball it out. What I could do, and what I've seen guys do in these things, is just to grind a little bit of metal there, and heck, not even grind a little. Once you start your arc with your MIG welder, you can burn that E-coat off and just fill it in with the hot metal glue gun, and that's not the best way to go. It creates, like I said before, a corrosion opportunity in the backside, and it's just kind of a cheeseball way to do it. So we're gonna do it differently, like that. We're gonna take advantage of this seam right here, which is a stamped seam into the roll pan itself. Kind of a cool thing. I'm going to trim it probably a ½ inch, maybe a little bit better around that outside. I'm going to leave this rolled edge here because when we look at it from the top, I want that nice finished rounded corner. But where it meets the actual bedside, we're going to butt weld it, not overlap, but no yes. It is not a hammer. Although it has been said that when the hammer is the only tool in your toolbox, you learn how to fix everything with a hammer. Right, I just want to clamp this in place because it's got an interference fit. It'll hang on there for a while, but when I don't want it to fall, it's going to end up on the floor at the most inopportune moment. And also, when you're clamping something in place, it helps to clamp it to actually something else instead of to itself. So, I'm going to rethink that number. No, not going to do it. Not going to do it. Right. Doesn't somebody make a magnetic screw holder for a drill? Riddle me that, internet. All right, so there's one SuperTech drill, self-drilling screw. Gravity will help that sit nicely. Well, what I want is I want this to be flush, and it's not, so I think right there. Ooh, yeah. I think that's my fit. Yeah, that's pretty dang flush. Okay, so I'm going to lock that in right here. Now that's not going anywhere. That's not going anywhere. I'm going to quickly run. So I don't get called out on it. Because you guys call me out on stuff. And I'm fine with that. Doesn't hurt my feelings. I won't let it show, even if it does. I'll cry in the shower where no one can see the tears. It's pretty, oh, okay. So I'm even seeing, I'm seeing the spectral highlight is what it's called. It's where the light reflects off that angle. And that's literally kind of like my laser point. That's my guide. So we're going to run a screw in right here. Other way. You know, if you're drilling out spot welds to separate sheet metal panels and you have the drill going backwards, it doesn't work very well. I've got my silver marker and I'm going to mark that. I'm going to mark that location. I'm going to mark that location. And I've already got these marked by the screw hole. So when I weld this in, I'm not going to weld the entire seam. There's no need for that. I'm just going to weld at these key points, and we're going to seam weld it all the way down there. Now that I know where it's going to go, I'm going to draw right here where I'm going to do my overlap weld. All of this business up in here, see if you can see right down in there. Right down there where the pen is. I want that edge rolled and finished looking. I want it looking nice. I don't even care that there's that gap there. That's fine. But I want that rolled edge looking nice. Because when we look down in that, it's going to look super sexy, finished, and custom. But right here is where we're going to weld. So that's just a reference point. When I pull this thing off again, I know where to stop trimming. Again, right there. Okay, okay. case you're wondering why I'm sweating profusely, and I've already stated that I've got a air-conditioned shop, it may or may not have been 5 o'clock somewhere yesterday. Okay, right here, passenger side rear, this is kind of folded up there. You can even see how easy that moves. Look at that, look at the flex in there. That's even with this corner stamped into the bedside. So it's an inherently weak point anyway. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave that alone, but I'm going to come down here and I'm going to draw where I'm going to cut. And I'm just going to cut that flange completely off. Yeah, we're going to do away with that, but I'm going to keep the strength of this corner. On this side, just to make a cut line, you can really see how goofy this side is. It needs to roll gently. The reason I'm cutting this 90 off is so I can manipulate this and bend it to where it matches this contour, this nice gentle sweep here, without me having to beat on it with a hammer or force it into place. All right, now we get to make the cutting. All right, so I make no promises here, but my friend Chris Slee from Kiwi Classics and Customs has inspired me to get my snips out and use that. All right, I've got my set of 3. I'm using the red guy. I wish I could get in a little bit tighter there, but I'll be able to get it from the other side. But so we get to make a nice cut, a little at a time, without making a bunch of sparks. And you can see how easily I can control that cut. I wanted the red ones because I can cut this and turn a little bit to the left. All right, so now that's going to move a lot easier. All right, now we got the green guys because it's the opposite turn. And again, it's awkward to start, but there we go now. Good. And I might flatten that out with the grinder a little bit later on, but I'm most concerned now with just getting rid of this 90 and just making this a little bit more movable. I've often said we're not telling the metal what to do, we're asking it nicely to cooperate with us. Now, single wall. See? See? Isn't that fun? All right. These guys will flatten your tires. Pick them up. So I want to keep my rolled edge. There's my reference point. My silver Sharpie died a horrible death. So the folds in this stamping are going to give me a super nice guide. That's where I want to cut. Right about there. And I think I want to leave a 1/4 inch. All right, so when I brace it like that, I let the edge help me make a straight line. If I freehand-it, then I goof it all up. All right, so that's what we're going to do. This will all become crystal clear in not very long when I start doing what I'm going to do, doing the thing. This is a heavier gauge steel than the original bed sides. And it's causing me some extra effort to Get the old two-handed approach. All right, Kiwi. You're not the only guy that could do stuff like that. Chris. So like I said, I'm gonna leave that roll down, but I want to roll this up. So who knew that adjustable wrench could be a metal fab tool? Now I'm doing this gently because I don't want to just totally hamburger the metal. I don't want to destroy it. We're going to weld it and grind it and do all that type of stuff, but I don't want to distort past here. So I'm treating my edge with respect. I'm just working it. And at some point, Mr. Hammer and Mr. Dolly is going to take over. And we're going to respectfully ask that this little 1/4 inch space becomes flat. And this right here, I need a relief cut, like there. All right, so that's about as much as I want to ask that to do. Well, maybe a little bit more down here. Yeah. So it's so interesting when you realize where metal, flat sheet metal, gets its strength. It doesn't get its strength from thickness. It gets its strength from shape, from it being pressed into another form and holding the tension. And once we relieve that tension, then we also relieve the strength of the panel, and we cause conditions like oil canning and things like that. So yeah, it's just kind of fun to study this stuff. And Ron Covell has been a huge part of my study. If you get a chance, go to his YouTube channels. Ron Covell, he's got all kinds of really great metalworking tutorials, DVDs. He's got Covell tools. He is, you hear the term guru thrown around a lot. Ron is. So what we're going to do now is take Mr. Hammer and Mr. Dolly. We use a hammer on dolly technique, and I'm going to straighten that flange out a little bit. All right. So that gets rid of that 90. And what it also does is it bought me another 1/4 inch that way. Huh? See where I'm going with this? Might take a bit of adjusting, but I don't got where I wanted this. Now I think it'll go up in there, up in there. Okay, there we go. Left leg and upside down, backwards handed. Ah. Stay where you at. So right here, mission accomplished. And although it may not look like it, that's exactly what I wanted to do. Exactly what I wanted to do. All right. This side, I wanted more overlap, but you could see we got pretty close to a good seam to weld right there. So I'm not going to call that a failure. I'm just going to call it we missed skipping a step. And I can just adjust that in and out, and now it kind of contours itself to the bottom of that bedside panel. And this side here, I've got plans for you, sir. I've got plans for you. So there is my seam from this side. So what I'm going to do is just kind of carry that up, and I'm going to overcut it a little bit. That way it gives me a chance to sneak up on it. But there's where the original shoulder was. And what that did is give me some options, right? This, not that. Here we go. All right, so that's good. I'm fine with that. What I'm going to do is clamp this here, then I'll use a blade to create the perfect seam. And on this side, I'm just going to kind of clean up this edge, just take a taste off of there, and then we've got a pretty stellar butt weld. We'll just adjust it and weld it as we go. Bob will be our uncle. Bob will be our uncle. Uncle Bob. All right, so here, I'm just going to mark where I need to trim. Right there, and right there. We don't need to trim any more off. But I do want to trim a little bit of this. See, right there. Perfect. Want a little bit of space, but not very much. So I'm just going to just sort of gently open that up a little bit. And I got my goal of that nice rolled edge down in there. And let's look at the other side. So I'm going to trim that just a bit with a grinder. Paint marking pen is not really cooperating. We've got that little guy there, I can tell. And from about there down, we don't want to trim any. No. And here, again, is just a little bit. All right, so I'm going to take it off one more time, do a little bit of adjustments, and then we'll prep for the metal burning event, i.e. metal burning. Sorta. I've still got a little bit of adjustment room here. So again, I'm looking at the spectral highlight here, this nice roll. I'm lining that up. I've got one more shot at it. And once I start burning it in, we can't move it anymore. It's not a hammer. Okay, there we go. So now, I can start my welds. So I'm going to start at the top and work my way down because I've got give and take down there. I've got less up here. And we'll just start and just weld it in. I've got a 16th inch gap most of the way down there. That's about what I want for MIG welding. I want a deposit filler rod in between the two panels. When I'm TIG welding, I want a much tighter fit because there's more fusion of the metal going on, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's where I want that. And we're going to do this side and then the other side. I'm not using weld-through primer on the back side of this because I've got perfect access all the way up in here. I can wipe seam sealer back there. I don't need weld-through primer back there. We could fill that hole in, and I'm pretty happy with that. Heck yeah, man. So my goal when I'm MIG welding a butt weld is to have the panels exactly flush with each other. Nothing proud of anything else, and about a 1/16 of an inch between each piece. And guess what? We've got that. It took a little while to sneak up on it and get it, but we're there. We're ready to weld, and everything's prepped. So I've got my welder dialed in. I've got 3 tools. I've got my pliers to set the stick out. I've got a hammer to adjust. And I've got a little tiny pocket screwdriver that I'm going to use to move the metal around to get it flush as I travel. We're going to go from the top down. Going to tack it in place, lock the other side in, and then we can go to fill in the crack. I said crack. Now I'm starting from the top because if you remember, that's where the 90-degree inner flange is still in place on the roll pan itself, as well as my bedside. If I started from the bottom, there's a really good chance that as the metal swells when you push a bunch of heat into it, that it would push out and not be flush anymore with my panels, the roll pan, and the quarter panel bedside thingy. If you've never welded sheet metal before, you might be wondering why I'm doing a tack and then stopping and then doing a tack and then stopping, instead of getting it over with and running a big fat honking beat and moving on and going for cold snacks. Well, the answer to that is sheet metal is very fragile, and it's a single layer that's very, very thin. This is 20 gauge sheet metal, and with the heat that you put into it, if you don't let it relax and contract back into its cell memory position, which is the stamped form that it was given, then you can lock it into a swelled up position and cause problems like oil canning or distortion, or ruin all the time that you spent getting a flush fit. Just trying to make sure that's as flush as possible so I don't have too much material to grind off. Now, leather gloves they're mandatory PPE for a couple of different reasons. You don't want to expose your skin to the UV coming off of the arc, and also you want to be able to feel the metal and make sure that you're still in the right place, in the right position. When I'm teaching painting, I tell my students that the PPE is in place so that we don't ever have to think about it again. We don't have to think about it bounce back into our eyes. We don't have to think about any exposed skin or chemicals getting on us. All we can focus on, all we have to focus on is doing the job. And if we don't have to worry about squinting or burning our hands, it just makes it that much easier, and we can stay in that zone. All right, that feels good all the way down, and I know it's locked into place. I'll fill this in a little bit later, but I'm gonna go do the other side just like that, and it's magic. It's not magic. So now I'm gonna spot weld in these places here, and I'm gonna have to kind of get creative to do it. This first one's easy. And then for the screw holes, I'll just have to zap them one time really good. Right there. That takes care of the screw hole. I'm not worried about the backside because, like I said, I can get back behind it and run some sealer in, and I'll run a bead of sealer here, and it'll be good. All right, so with that done, everything's locked into place. Now I'm going to start building this up and kind of alternate from side to side. That way I keep my welds cool and I don't risk warping, even though on a corner there it's pretty strong, but that's what we're going to do, okay? So, I'm happy with that. I don't have any pinholes, at least I don't think so. And we got good penetration, and I didn't warp the crap out of it because I stayed calm and kept it cool. So obviously we're grinding. I'm going to grind with a flap wheel because the flap wheel has space in between the grit, keeps it a little bit cooler too. I'm still going to alternate side by side. I might use this guy to tune it up. I'll probably use this carbide burr to get inside areas like that and just kind of fine tune it. I want it all flush and flat, ready for filler. I'm going to use this welding helmet. You know why? I just found this. I've had this helmet for a couple of years, and I just found that. You hit that button, and now it's a grinding shield. It doesn't auto dark when it sees that molten metal, and it's just the little things, man. So, there. Are you ready? I'm ready. Air hose. Here. Oh, I need earplugs too. Where are my earplugs? Right here. All right. All right, welds are flush. I don't need to do any cleanup. I've got these areas radiused like I want to, and the next step is body filler, but we're not ready for body filler yet. We've got rough grinding marks here. We need to blend it out. Blend it out. I'll show you what I mean. So there's not much feathering to do, but I do need to prep around here. We've got pretty gnarly grinding marks here. I've got 80 grit on my dual action sander, and I'm going to be wiping this with filler. I can't stop there. I want to taper it out and make it nice and blend it in and all that stuff. So 80, we're going to take it past there, and then we're going to go 180 past the 80, because that's why. I don't know if you're picking up on something or not, but it looks like I did a little bit better job on this side. It just looks nicer. But also, I've got a flat DA sander now, and I'm picking up some dents here. When I run my hand over it, it's not warpage, it's actually little dents. So I'm just going to say that this was damaged in a prior incident, perhaps a grocery store parking lot. I don't know. Now I'm going to hit it with 180 and blend that out a little bit farther. I want the 80 grit scratches right there, but I want 180 into the surrounding area so I can have a nice taper. So we are going to use this filler, the green means go filler. I don't know how much I'm going to need, but it might be more than that, so I'm going to mix up a little more than that. And that can stay right there. Here's a really good idea. This is a good housekeeping, or as we say, best practice. Here's some best practice for you. There's solvent and resin in these body filler containers. Pop the cap on, pop the lid on every time you're not using it, because they can outgas and they get thick and they get crusty. All right, so we're going to go, according to our guide, 4-inch. We're going to go all the way across there. And I'm hoping I can get by with one application, but I don't know. Do my figure eights. Put it in the comments if you want to know more about the figure eights. But you can see how quickly the catalyst gets intermixed into the body filler. And I've got a ginormous mixing board. It's not a piece of cardboard, because that's also not best practice. That's not a great idea. Some of the resins can leach into the cardboard. It's better to work on a piece of glass or a piece of aluminum or something like that. Cardboard, not a good idea. All right. From the time that you don't have any streaks, you've got about 6 minutes. So we're going to try and be efficient. The first wipe is a tight wipe to kind of prime the surface and get it crammed into any air pockets. We're not going for shaping on the first wipe. Get down in there. Now we go for a little bit of material build. And if you remember seconds ago, when I used my sander and got this prepped to 80 grit and then out to 180, if you read the TDS for this body filler, Evercoat tells us that we can successfully apply this filler to 180 grit. So then I don't have to worry about a shelf. I can blend this out safely and according to the manufacturer's instructions. Now I'm trying to be efficient here, but not in a hurry. Again, we have a tight wipe for the first one, because I don't want this stuff to kick while I'm in the middle of spreading. So, first wipe. That was a Sylvester Stallone movie, wasn't it? Fingertip pressure. We're not grading the road, we're spreading body filler. There, look at that. Oh. Oh. So it's still creamy as I'm spreading it, but I can feel the viscosity change in my hands. It's getting thicker, so I've got a limited amount of time in which I can manipulate and mess around with this stuff. Yeah, it's starting to pull, so I gotta stop. Stop, Kevin, stop. I can't stop. I can't stop spreading it around. Okay. Stop it. All right, I'm done. So the filler has changed color. It doesn't feel sticky. So I'm gonna hit it with 80 first on the DA, just to knock the top off of it and knock a basic shape into it. Now, I don't want to go too far with that because I'll lose control of it. So now I'm going to come with the hand blocks. We've got 80 again. Now, just refining the shape. Believe it or not, body working is a little bit easier to do on a rounded shape than it is on a flat surface. It's a little more forgiving. Ish, kinda. All right, a little bit more under here. Hard to see. There, my shape's there. Move on to the other side. Now, if you've watched any of my Paintucation videos that show body working, you know that I always subscribe to an X pattern. The X pattern lets you use the leading edge and the length of the block to flatten out the surface, instead of going linear, and you can carve holes and dig grooves into it. Also, you'll see me take a used up Scotch-Brite pad and shed a lot of that loaded up sanding dust out of the sanding block itself. They used to call me the mudslinger. Actually, no, nobody ever called me that. And while it kind of might look like I'm sanding like a wild man, I'm trying to make sure to keep the heavier grit sandpaper within my bodywork and bridge just past it. I'm trying to level out the filler to the pieces of substrate or panels around it, nothing more. Oh. So I'm going to stop there with the 80. We're going to guide coat, because I have lost my perspective on what my shape looks like. So now we're going to give us a contrast. A surface analysis tool, powdered graphite, who knew? So now I've got 180. See, it's a progress. We work our way down. 180 shows us the 80 grit scratches along with the guide coat. That's what we're trying to get rid of now. I got my basic shape roughed out. Now we're trying to refine the scratches and the damage I did shaping it. And in theory, once your guide coat is gone and once you've got a nice feather into the surrounding area, your bodywork is flat. So that's what we're going to do right now. That's what I said. Now, all right, so I took it down to 180 and I kind of stepped it out with 220, and then I feathered it out even farther with the red pad, which is 220 to 320 grit. The reason we do that is because we don't want to ask our primer to do too much. The primer has to fill in all of that mess and all the scratches and put enough of a layer on there to where we can further refine that and smooth it out. So I'm fine with it. My guide coat tells me that there's no pinholes. We don't see any pinholios there. And it's a nice feather on all the edges. We've got a nice rounded corner here that's going to give us a, I don't know, give us a little bit of a break. It's easier to do body work on a rounded corner. So now we're going to get rid of this dust film and spray some high build poly on it. Now, I'm using my Evercoat polyester high build primer. You guys have seen me mix this. It's 4 parts primer to 1 part catalyst. It's super easy. I don't want to bore you with that, but I did want to show you the gun I'm going to be spraying it with. This is my 100B P for polyester. It's made for polyester. It's got shorter air horns, so it doesn't over dry as it's coming out of the gun. But look at the fluid tip. Look at that. It's huge. It's a garden hose. This stuff is very, very thick. So we need a large fluid tip to spray this stuff. Because it's so thick, there's very little overspray. We'll set our gun at about 15 to 18 pounds and we'll spray. I am going to be wearing a mask, of course, and glasses, but this is a polyester, not a urethane, so it's a little bit safer to use. And I've got my death fan going in the back to create a little bit of airflow. Not necessarily to pull overspray because there's not going to be any, but I want airflow moving over the work surface so the solvents can evacuate and all those fancy things happen. So that said, I'm probably going to put 3 coats of this product on those ends. We're going to do an outside-in strategy, largest coat, second coat smaller, third coat smallest. You ready? I'm ready. All right, it didn't look to me like there was any pinholes in the body filler, but there was some pinholes in the body filler. So I'm gonna show you how to fix pinholes in polyester. Now, is this the best possible thing to do? Maybe not, but it works, especially when you catch it on the first coat. So I don't have air hooked up to the gun. I'm just getting a few drops of primer out into this little clippy thing. So now I've got a tiny little touch-up brush thing. All right, so now we're gonna go find a pinhole. That's a chunk of rocks and garbage, but that's a pinhole. You can see the crater. So since I'm on my first coat, and you can see a little bit of gloss on there, it's flashed, and it's out of dust, but it's not, it's ready. It'll still cross-link. It's soft enough to where this will burn or blend into it. So I'm just, you saw it. There we go. See? Crater filled. So I'm just going to look around for any more. I don't see any more in this corner. Oh, wait. I do. Okay, got that guy. Let's look on the other side. I don't know what that is. It might It might be. I'm just going to touch it anyways. Do the airbrush guys do, and they hold their pinky against a panel, and it gives you a lot more stability when you're touching up. I need a little more in there. It is a little bit of a crater, and it happens. If you catch them with the body filler, you can body work it with a razor blade. Oh, so right here, there's 75 of them. So our pinhole's a mistake. Kinda, but not really. Pinholes are a product of the body filler getting mixed with air pockets in it. Evercoat has a product called 440 Express that you wipe on afterwards, and it fills in all these guys. But you got to know that they're there. And I looked, I used my guide coat, and I looked, and I didn't see any dang pinholes. But you're looking at them right now. I can't even remember what Derek says about it. Something about, I don't believe it, but I guess I have to, because there it is right in front of me. Something to that effect. All right, so I think that's going to take care of that. It ain't broke till you can't fix it anymore. Don't sweat that stuff. It happens. It happens to everybody. So who knew that we're going to have so many tips and tricks in this episode? So right here, gee, what happens if you get a run in your primer? Look at that. That's a good one. I promise you I did not do that on purpose. So I'm going to take my masking tape, I've got 1.5 inches. While it's wet, which it is, what I'm doing, you can see what I'm doing. I'm blotting the dang run off of the panel. It's not the worst thing in the world to leave that run there, but especially with urethane primer and paints, especially top coats, that thickness will hurt you. This primer is designed to be laid on thick. So what I'm going to do is let that flash a little bit, and I'm going to come back with one more coat. And I'm going to keep in mind that I'm not going to get a run. I'm trying to keep it PG right here. But anyway, right there, you're welcome. That's how to pull a run out in wet film after you screw up. Now, I like the look of a roll pan, and this one's got some style to it. The tag pocket is nice and styled and things like that. And we've got enough primer on there to where this is going to block out super nice. So this is finished. This gets us the roll pan installed. You know what else this gets us? This gets us, all the body work is finished on Derek's truck. All of it. So now we can start the process of flattening out everything and getting the foundation super dialed in for a slick black paint job. And it doesn't stop there. I'm going to show you guys surface correction techniques, show car polishing, and I'm just so excited about it because for me, in my brain, where all of this goes, it just is now starting to get super fun. Foundation work, that's great. I love the creativity of fabrication, welding, bodywork, all that kind of stuff, of course. But when it goes into the refinement process, I really like that. So if you get a chance, check back some of the back episodes on this build. We've got playlists set out to where you can just pick out the different vehicle categories. And as we move along, I'm going to continue to do that. And by the way, thank you for whomever suggested that. And it makes perfect sense to me. So thanks for watching the channel. Thanks for subscribing. And thank you for going along on the journey with me. And next time we see this truck, we're going to make it super slick and super flat. And I'm going to walk you through the process. Thanks for watching.